All right, just out not long ago, billionaires, you got to beware because Al-Qaeda is now targeting you amongst other leaders, mostly Americans, in their new hit list. It's published in the terror group's magazines, their glossy magazine, and it features Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Michael Bloomberg, the Koch brothers, Sam Walton, of course, which would be kind of hard to kill him, but at least maybe his offspring. All of this, of course, coming just 2 days before the 9/11 anniversary. Chris Whiton, the former Bush State Department senior advisor, joins me now. I think we got to take this seriously, don't you, Chris?
That's right. They say print is dead, and it probably is. You know, you can only take this so far. You know, what Al-Qaeda is probably doing here is trying to remain relevant. We're 2 days away from 9/11. They love big anniversaries, but they've lost the initiative to their competitor, to ISIS and other jihadist groups. ISIS is getting the attention, the headlines, making the gains, and it's getting the new recruits. So it's basically a ploy, I think, by Al-Qaeda to remain relevant, to remain in the headlines. But, of course, the people on this list would need to take precautions nonetheless.
Does this, though, also harken back, because when 9/11 initially happened, I don't think it was a debate, but some people pushed back against the notion that we were targeted because of our success, because of our freedoms. Some on the left said, no, you know what, we were overreacting. It was exogenous kind of feelings that, you know, we were sort of being arrogant. But I do think that this underscores the fact that there's a lot of old-fashioned envy about how successful and how free America really is.
I think there's a lot to that. I mean, fundamentally, Islamism, which is the political ideology that animates these people, it's one that a great portion of our own country still can't, you know, bring itself to name. Islamism is the ideological enemy. It animates not just in Al-Qaeda and ISIS, but also Iran. And it is against modernity. It is against individualism and individual achievement. And it has selected a number of individuals, billionaires in this case, because they symbolize that. And, you know, Al-Qaeda in the past has focused on big governmental and targets like the World Trade Center. Those are somewhat hard to hit and require big plans with a lot of moving parts that are somewhat easy for Western police agencies to detect. So focusing on individuals is perhaps an adaptation on their part.
But so are you saying all of Islam could be radicalized at any moment, or all of Islam is the enemy of the West and success, or would it be, quote unquote, the radical part of it, the radicalized part of it?
I think it's important to separate the religion from the ideology. The religion, of course, is a religion of more than 1 billion people, and it's not actually even conservative Islam that we're worried about. There are some very conservative Muslims. You may not want to spend a Friday night with them, but they're not a problem for the United States unless they want to unify mosque and state, unless they want to basically challenge democratically elected or other types of governments and replace them with theocracies. That, to me, is the distinction. Some people call it radical Islam. I think Islamism is the most correct label because it implies that it's a totalitarian ideology like communism, like fascism. So that's, yeah, just a
I love that. I love how you put that. That's a great way of putting it. Now, earlier today, I had Ron Paul. I was filling in for Stuart Varney, and he blames intervention, but American interventionism, and he blames both parties for what's happened over in Syria and with the migrant problem. And I want you to take a listen to him. He made a very passionate, I think he made a very passionate and smart case for this.
It's interventionism of Republicans and Democrats and neoconservatives still rule the roost that we have to remake the Middle East, and we certainly did since 9/11. We have remade the Middle East, but I see no positives.
All right, Christian, here's the thing, though. How safe would the world be? How safe would all of the planet be if America wasn't the beat cop? If we say, you know what, we'll put a fence around our country and everybody just go for it.
Well, we should control our borders better, but no, that wouldn't solve any of the problems. I mean, what you're seeing in the Middle East is because of an absence or a vacuum of American power. The Ron Paul crowd, if you will, believes that we helped create what happened in Syria. That is incorrect. It's not just a different point of view. It is wrong. We invaded Iraq in 2003. Arab Spring, the political revolutions that led to the Syrian civil war, started in 2010 in Tunisia, the complete other end of the broader Middle East. So, you know, whether we invaded Iraq or not, what happened in Arab Spring would have happened, and we would have had the Syrian civil war, we would have had this resurgence of Islamism, and we would have had this refugee crisis, especially when you combine it with the withdrawal from the Middle East that we've seen over the last 7 years.
But is there argument that we did, we helped get rid of Gaddafi, we helped to destabilize Syria, we certainly got rid of Saddam Hussein, that even though these guys were brutal dictators, all of these major terror organizations that exist now and threaten the entire world probably could have never have grown to this size or strength.
You know, I think there's a flip side to each one of those arguments. I mean, Saddam probably would have been swept by the same political forces that swept Assad. They were very similar dictators. And also, we can say that we helped push Gaddafi. And, of course, we did participate in a military operation against him. But what has happened there was, frankly, because we paid no attention to what comes next. We didn't help the secular Muslims get an upper hand and beat the Islamists. Also in Egypt, you know, Mubarak was pretty much done for by the time we got our pants on during that crisis. Humpty Dumpty had fallen off the wall. It was clear the Egyptian military was unwilling to stage the massacre of its own citizens that would have been required to suppress those protests. And incidentally, the protesters weren't Islamists. They weren't the Muslim Brotherhood. They were young modernists who wanted modernity and freedom and individualism. It was the Islamists who came in after the fact when this administration was neglecting the details, and that's when they got the upper hand.
All right, Christian Whiton, you know this stuff better than anybody else. I appreciate your comments.